Hey everybody, welcome to the Tim Kulig Free Music Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Kulig. It is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. It's not really. I'm actually recording this in advance. If I'm being completely honest with my audience, I've decided this year I'm going to spend some time doing stuff about 4 to 6 weeks in advance whenever possible, so that I'm not scrambling to make content and to make shows, and so I can develop micro content from the shows as well. So it's going to be a really, really busy year, and there's a lot of people that I want to put on the show and interview and have regular guests on. So it's going to, I want to be better about planning, and I don't want to have big gaps, large gaps in the show like I did last year, and be consistent with it. So yeah, that's things to come, basically, coming down the pipeline. So let's do some updates first. First and foremost, finally got that first Spaghetti Western album out. As of this recording, it will have been out for a few weeks. It actually drops March 1st. It's on the website as of February 24th, and I'll be spreading it out amongst the other sites that I host my music on as well. That's, for all of you folks that use Pixabay or SoundCloud still, you'll be able to get them from there as well. So that's great. But again, easiest way to get it is at my website, timkulig.com. When you click on one of the songs, it literally pops up the attribution language and the download link. Couldn't be any easier. In fact, I think I'm going to do some micro content about navigating my website and getting information and getting the songs and how to go about doing that again. Just because I did do it once around Christmas time, and it's real easy to have that buried in the mix, and I want to do super specific videos. And I was talking, a few weeks back about how I was going to provide some guidance on social media and everything too, as to how to select and use the songs on there in a way that'll minimize any issue you would have using my music on any of those sites. Because depending upon whether you're using a third-party editor, some things can come up, sometimes they don't. It's really strange. It's really, really bizarre. But in any event, let's get back to the album. Spaghetti Western, 10 songs, some kind of like moody ambient, some really what you'd think a Spaghetti Western song would sound like. Little mixture of both. Has to do with the fact that the idea behind that whole album was I'm writing music specifically for the Spaghetti Western theme, but also for my friend Kelly Clark of Dork Tales, who's actually running a D&D campaign right now with a Spaghetti Western theme. And it kind of has a sci-fi vibe to it too, because the feeling is that it's on another planet or something like that. So very interesting stuff. And I want to make sure that, it has all those vibes and everything too. So, and that's kind of how I write too. I tend to blend my styles a little bit. So it's going to have Spaghetti Western with a little flair of whatever, but there's going to be more of those to come, because I think he told me that campaign could go on for months, and that usually requires some different sonic narrative. So we're going to keep varying some things over to him, and what he uses great. If not, it'll just still be something I release. So all good there. There's a second album in the works, and I actually designed the album cover art today. It's called Dunescapes, and it's a Middle Eastern flair style. I haven't done this since like 2021, and I'm kind of excited to see what other tracks I can get into the mix. Right now, there's like 5 or 6 tracks that I have that I could potentially get to a point of mastering, but I'd like that also to be a compilation of about 8 to 10 tunes. And by the time this comes out, that's probably already going to be done. And I'll be talking about this, in the future, in the past, which is okay. But it's neat. It's really an interesting process when I'm struggling to finish an album or finish a group of songs in one genre. I tend to create the album art, and in so doing, it kind of inspires me to either round out the music in a way that kind of plays to the visual aspect of everything, which is the album art, or vice versa. The album art speaks to the music that comes out of me too. So it's a neat little trick I use as a composer to kind of hone in, especially when you're doing all these different styles all at once and bouncing back and forth between this and synthwave and orchestral and horror and everything. Like, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds in this whole process. So I find that tethering myself to something like as simple as an image is a pretty cool way to get myself to that next place and finalize and finish something. So all good. So that's by the time this comes out, I'll probably already run all the socials on that and promoted that. So that'll be 20, probably 20 in the tank for the year. I'm also going to do best of again this year, specifically on the tracks from 2025. I did release a lot of them. So, and there's some songs that I put out last year that really, really, really resonated and I really enjoyed too. So again, all those best of albums are going to be a combination of that. Ones that people really gravitated towards and used a lot. And then ones that I just felt personally that were a testament to this stage of my writing ability. Like I was like, yeah, I really kind of nailed a couple of those tunes and I'm very excited about that. So in addition to that, I've had at least 3 people, if not like a full 5, talk to me about synthwave. So I'm doing at least a double album of synthwave tunes, maybe even triple, which would be, just so you understand, I shoot for 8 on every album, every compilation. Sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes I end up with an EP if I'm really not vibing on stuff. But this is probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark of like 16 to 20, if not more. And I do have a lot of stuff in the tank right now. But I also made a purchase. There's a VST company called UVI, and they were running a special about a month ago on retro synths, like everything from like DX7 emulators, Casio CZ1s, both of which I owned at one point, and a bunch of FM synthesizers from back in the day. And I think there's like 14,000 patches, and it includes drum machines and all these different things. And I might just do like a demo day where I'm just like going through patches and just playing around with them and highlighting them as my favorites for this project and just see what comes down the pipeline. Also, complete non sequitur, but Kimby needed a new freaking condo behind me. The other one was really kind of rickety. And in fact, you can't even see, there's like a super perch at the top, and he loves it right now. He's right here to my left in front of the window. I got to have my co-pilot on this magic carpet ride, and it's my cat. So he's a good boy, and I want to make sure that he's happy when I'm doing all these interviews and doing demos and stuff like that. So also podcasts. I've talked about this before, but there's a huge surge this year on the podcast front. I've already done 5 of the 10 interviews I promised myself I would do, and it's not even March yet. So I'm just flabbergasted that I've been able to knock these out as quickly as I have. And it's no short testament to the platform Riverside.FM, which I think I'm going to do a whole deep dive on at some point to share with you guys, because it's been a freaking game changer for me. Between micro content and the ability to capture this stuff remotely with someone else, and just the quality that comes out of it, and the tools and the ability to create show notes and everything else, just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It's allowing me to be able to do the podcast as a regular item, whereas before I struggled because of all the time it took to go through and edit and go through all that process. I'm also giving myself the freedom with these interviews to know that, like, I am actually trying to do it in like a Joe Rogan style, where we kind of just dive into a conversation, make it very organic. Although I do have show notes that, like items that I want to hit with my guest, and typically we'll share that so that we both come to the table understanding the kind of things we're going to talk about. But outside of that, I try to keep it just loose and casual like this, because people don't want something canned when it comes to an interview. They want to see real. They want to see people hesitate and think about how they're going to answer a question, and maybe just, go off script and talk about things that are important to them, specifically in whatever discipline that they're in, most of which they're going to be tied to me somehow with music, but not all of them. There's some people that I genuinely don't use my music or haven't used my music, and I'm just genuinely interested in them as an artist and as a creator, and just trying to get to know them and create, a network of people that I interview on a regular basis that inspire me and hopefully inspires my audience, and eventually we start working together on a regular basis. So it's just really cool stuff. Anyway, so yeah, again, I was talking about the short form content and how Riverside can create those clips for you. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It gets it like 80% of the time. And when it doesn't, they're really easy to clip and move around. But the other thing I want to do this year is to push the podcast on the various platforms that Podbean publishes them to. In fact, I've upgraded my account, so now I have an account, executive that can help me when I'm having troubles and problems with it, because I plan on doing multiple podcasts this year, to be determined and to be disclosed. They're still under production. I may have mentioned it in passing in another one of these things, but you'll have to wait and see. There's a couple of things in the pipeline that I plan on doing in addition to my musical stuff. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. But I want to push this on Amazon, Apple, Spotify. I had to solve a problem on Spotify recently. Didn't know that they didn't take anything but MP3s. So a couple of my episodes are missing there. In fact, I'd want to go back and fix a couple in the 30s that aren't registering on there. But I haven't had anybody say to me that's part of my audience, like, I can't get your podcast on Spotify for some reason, blah, blah. So anybody that's looking for it is probably finding it a different way. And again, you can see the last 10 you can listen to anyway right now, the last 10 podcasts from Podbean, like as they're hosted on Podbean, right on my website at the top, there's a little widget that's embedded on my website, and you can just listen to it from my website, which is great. I'm looking to get into some more non-subscription based royalty-free sites this year. One of the ones I looked at was named Jamendo, and it's a little saturated, but I feel like my catalog speaks volumes and does well on some other platforms. It's doing very well on Pixabay, and there's a lot of traction for it on SoundCloud, and I'd like to make sure there's more people using it. So I'm looking at Jamendo, and if any of you all have any other places that you go looking for royalty-free music, please reach out to me and let me know what you use. Specifically, though, it can't be something that's subscription-based. Like I'm not interested in getting involved with something that's a software as a service. I literally to me, it's attribution and free, or an extended license and they can pay me directly. Other than that, I'm not really interested in doing all the splits and everything with the site and getting really complicated. I want to just, what you see is what you get, nice and easy. But also promotions. I'm kicking up promotions this year. So you may find in your feeds on socials or on any of the platforms that you watch my content on or catch my content on, you might start seeing some ads. I'm going to pick that pace up pretty moderately this year. In fact, I'm pretty much doing, with every interview I've had so far, I've run some kind of show promotion on Reels, not TikTok, but like Reels and on YouTube. I've done that, and I've gotten the whole idea behind that is to create some momentum and some awareness of the show, but also promote the collaboration between me and the guest that's on the show. So it's been going very well so far. I'm very excited about that. Movies, I've got some stuff in the pipeline with that I'll talk about in a minute, but I've got other people that have been using my music that I'm going to have on the show, one of which is going to be Eric Michael Schrader. He is an editor that worked with the TV show. He was on Life Below Zero. Sorry, I had to I'm looking at my notes at the same time and trying to make sure I'm hitting all the points. But he was an editor on the reality show Life Below Zero for better part of a decade, and he also used a bunch of my music recently in a movie that he produced and directed called Shoot the Guns 2, the sequel that needs no prequel. And it was really fun, and it was really fun to see how he utilized my music. He's going to be on. We're going to be doing an interview with him and seeing what he's working on now, as that show Life Below Zero has since sunsetted, and he's taking a new step with his career, and we're going to talk to him about what that means. Also, PM Nelson is another collaborator that has released recently a movie called Arcane. It's a 40-minute, roughly, I think it's about 45 minute long short. It's almost feature length. I mean, technically 60 minutes is feature length, but it's right there. It's right on the cusp. Really well done. Really amazing work. And a few of my tunes are in that movie. And I also scored a piece for a promotional trailer that is running around. And if you follow me at all on Instagram, it's on there, and I've been promoting it on there as well. A big thing about this year is, again, the collaboration with other people's content, with my music. If they're interesting, I want to have them on the podcast. And if they're any part of a networking group I'm part of, I just went to Podfest in January, and there's a ton of other podcasters that love to do cross-promoting and talk about what they do. And I'd love to get their insight on where they get the music, what kind of music they're looking for. If they're satisfied with what they're using, great. If they're constantly looking for A, B, and C styles and there's nobody out there that's doing it, well, that's where I want to fit in. That's where I want to make the difference and offer the value to people. So, and then also talk to other fellow movie makers and composers. And if I haven't mentioned this before, I've actually been making movies in some capacity for like 25 years. And it's not something I push on my platforms. In fact, I got really serious about it about 10, 15 years ago. I do most of my projects with my best friend, Tom Seymour. But it's just the last several years have been amazing. We've been doing festival runs and just making the things that we want to make. And we're doing it in our own steam with our own budgets and in a way that's sustainable. We both have very busy lives. We have families and other obligations, work and everything outside of what we do artistically. And it's important that we continue to do this work with movies, with independent film, where we feel very strongly about it. And since physical media has kind of evaporated for the most part, and the next generations are just not going to understand or even care for that, we're trying to find a path for independent filmmakers in all capacities, whether they're telling a narrative or a documentary or anything there, like a reality, anything, just a path to get an audience where it's been basically eroded from the lack of physicality. You can't go out to a video store anymore and rent something, stuff like that. I'm thinking about getting a little more focused on behind the scenes this year too. I know I've mentioned it last year. I did a couple of demo videos on YouTube, but more and more I'm thinking that I probably want to do a regular bit on that, or even just do a live stream, something that's even more raw and unedited than some of these episodes, because I think people want to see what goes through your head. Like, how do you manage problems in real time? And I think that would offer some value. That would offer some insight as to the problem solving that happens as a composer. And I find it interesting. And I imagine some other composers or even some other creatives would find it interesting too. Specifically, when I dive into a new music style, I'd love to just be that open and raw about it. Like, I've never touched this in my life. And here today I'm going to show you how I make templates in 3 different styles, because I'm going to go in there and I'm going to audition a bunch of software instruments and decide which ones I'm going to use as my bass. And then from there, I'll just start laying down tracks and laying down ideas. And I may literally flub through something where I'm like, yep, not finished with that. I'm going to have to come back to that. I don't know how that's going to evolve. And I come back to something else, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So again, new music styles, raw styles I know and do well. Those will be easier. Well, not easier, but you know what I mean? Like I kind of know the flow of that, and I know how to find my way with horror or with orchestral or electronic music. So we'll do some of that stuff. Again, I mentioned templating and testing out new software and patches. I mean, yeah, I could do an hour-long podcast on just auditioning a small fraction of that UVI catalog. I mean, it's literally 14,000 patches. And then you can modify any one of those with its FM synthesis. So it's like LFOs and envelopes and stuff. And if you don't know the technical jargon, it's just basically a way of twisting and turning the sound and the way the sound is made with sound waves and everything. And it's infinite. It's literally infinite what can be done. So very excited about that. I'm very excited about sharing that with you. And anything else you guys want to see. Again, I have a call to action at the end of this. Basically, reach out and let me know stuff that you want to see. Tom Seymour is going to be a more regular guest this year, primarily for a number of reasons. One, he's my best friend and tend to do very similar things or work on multiple projects together. So it just makes sense that we're going to do updates. But also, there's some insight that he can offer when it comes to my music. And I also, in kind, offer some insight in the film space, even though I've never really, I don't really edit. I do now with my podcast, but I don't edit or direct. I produce. I actually produced several films last year and the year before in a co-executive or executive fashion and got involved with those. Also got some of my music involved with those. Some of those are still in post-production, so they're not available to watch yet. Some of them have been released. Again, you can get a list of everything that I've got going on my IMDb profile, and there's a link to that on my website. But might start some segments with another surprise guest. Can't talk about it yet because I'm not sure if it's a done deal yet. But it might be short-lived. It might just be a couple snippets, or it might be a regular thing. So I know I'm being dodgy here and scanty, but it promises to be interesting if it does go through. I'm hoping you'll be excited when it happens, if it happens. And then coming soon, before I even say that, Kelly Clark of Dork Tales will have just happened by the time this came out. So hopefully you enjoyed that interview. It was a lot of fun to talk to Kelly about his journey and his road as a dungeon master, as a game master. I know it depends the game you're playing, whether you'd call it dungeon master or game master, or just he's a DM. That's an easiest way to. I just use the 2-letter acronym because that just basically covers everything. But man, oh man, is he a good DM? He does so many shows at once and so many campaigns at once. I literally said to him, I think multiple times in the interview, I don't know how you keep your head straight, dude. I really don't. I don't know how you take the time. Like, first of all, the time. I mean, I know it's his main gig, but at the same time, I have a hard time playing a barbarian, which is, there's 4 or 5 moves a barbarian can do, and it's just don't die, be tough, don't die, rage when necessary, reckless abandon, all that's basically it. That's it. But I look at what he does with his storytelling and his campaign leading, and my God, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. After this episode airs, I'll have an interview with Diane Student of History Goes Bump. Fantastic podcast. Been around now for 12 years and consistent, great, big audience. Wonderful interview to have. And she was my first Patreon. So I was very excited to have her on the show. It was fantastic. Again, Eric Schrader is going to be on. At least a dozen more guests that I've either already reached out to or I'm planning on reaching out to for this year. It'll probably be even more than that because I'm having so much fun having people on the show and just sitting back and chatting, and people seem to be resonating with it so far. In fact, I think it's going to be a regular aspect of the whole business model, is to talk to people and to bring up, how they use music and things. And again, whether they're using my music or not, to me, it's irrelevant. It also helps me, regardless, how to approach the future of everything that I'm writing. And it's just really exciting. It's exciting to share the excitement of other creatives and just share that passion with one another. It's fantastic stuff. And then that's basically it. So I just want to make sure everybody knew what was happening to date, what's coming down the pipeline. Again, we've got Spaghetti Western already out, the Middle East album, which is Dunescapes, that'll probably have already dropped, and then I'll be in the process of, or like finalizing the tunes for the Synthwave album, or albums, by the time this comes out too. So just a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, everybody, thanks so much for being a part of the journey and being interested in how it's all coming together. If you have any show ideas, if you've got music ideas, if there's anything you're hoping to see, if there's things you want to know behind the scenes, anything at all that'll make this experience add more value to you, reach out to Tim Kulig, freemusic@gmail.com, and let's start a conversation. I'll get it into the show. I'll get you on the show, maybe. Just let's have a good time, man. Thanks for stopping in. We'll talk to you again real soon.